Hello and welcome back to the TDP. Back a rare back-to-back episode for me. Just did a nice one yesterday. Actually, got like a comment on my video, which was very exciting. It was, someone who I actually know and someone who's very close to me. And who cares? He said something nice, and it was great. It made me feel like, hey, that was a good episode, and now I'm gonna do another one. So there you have it. Anyways, I just wanted to jump on and talk about a couple things that have been happening, and I know I probably get way too obsessed with this kind of stuff, but honestly, I think it's very important for citizens to stay informed. And I feel like right now we're having a major issue with one of the two major political parties, and that is like just transparency. I see, I talked a little bit about the Harris presidential candidacy yesterday, and how that happened, right? I think they honestly felt like that Biden became incompetent. He really got smashed in that debate, and it was really sad to watch. You guys watched it. He didn't look like a coherent person. He couldn't answer questions and kind of dazed off and got lost in his answers. He even at one point said that he beat Medicare, which who knows what that means. I mean, it wasn't like Trump did so good or anything like that. It was just it's hard not to look good when you're standing next to someone who is just struggling with his cognitive ability. And I think ultimately that's why they had to bring him out of the race. Now, the question is, how long has he been like that? Obviously we've saw him do these gaffes. We saw him wander off the stage, wander around fields in Italy, and we saw him do all these things, but yet we have these Democratic operatives and the media telling us how sharp he is and how capable he is, and including Kamala Harris, and her new vice presidential running mate candidate, Tim Walz, also said, hey, this guy's so smart, and obviously we saw with our own eyes, they can't gaslight us on that. We saw that he was not doing well. And it was kind of sad. It was really sad to watch Joe Biden just, creep around and couldn't really do it. I mean, there was some creepy stuff. I think the creepiest thing is like the fact that they don't mention it. They don't, now he's the greatest president ever since they finally forced him to give up the candidacy for this year's election. Now, I think when I say transparency at the beginning, I mean they've used some process to determine that Kamala Harris is who the Democratic voters want. Without them voting, they just assign the delegates to her, and they've had this big, huge boost in money to their campaign, which is kind of odd because it weirdly looks like about the amount of money that Biden already had in his campaign donor chest, which is about $250-300 million, which is a crazy amount of money. I guess advertising has been affected by inflation too. So, now she has that money, and they said that it was all small donors, but it's probably just bots. They were able to use bots to donate that money. Actually, anybody would know what that looks like if you ever watched the hit show called Breaking Bad. Saul Goodman, who's probably the funniest character on that show, actually came up with a scheme for Walt, who's the main character trying to launder money. They used bots to make donations to his sons, whatever, but they used the bots to bring in this money, right, and make it look like something that it wasn't. it's my suspicion that that's what's happened with that. I don't know if Kamala Harris is going to gain $200 or $300 million over the course of a few days. I just don't see it happening. Especially since you look at her previous political history. I mean, when she ran for president, and I talked about this, I know I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but when she ran for president, she didn't get any delegates. She started crashing. I mean, she started out with a really good speech in Oakland, and to kind of announce that she was running for president back then, and it came off really good. She is a dynamic speaker in front of a big crowd when she's reading off of a teleprompter, and she doesn't really have to go off script. It looked good, and I think she had some momentum going in, and then Tulsi Gabbard completely destroyed her in that first debate. You guys can find the clips and watch it. It's hilarious. But just exposed her extreme liberalism and kind of like some of the things she stood for in her career and what she's done. And it immediately killed her candidacy. She also, during those debates, exposed herself, exposed her flip-flopping ways, I guess you would say. I mean, she called Joe Biden a racist. I mean, said that he implemented racist policies during his political career that affected her as a little girl and things like that. But, she didn't last. She didn't even last until the first primary in that election cycle. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe she's the most popular candidate in the world, and I'm not sure I can get myself there. I don't think Americans should be able to get themselves there, at least until they see her actually answer questions. Every time she does, it's a disaster. She's been the vice president for 2 years, 3 years, right? 3.5 years. And everything she's done is blown up. I mean, she was supposed to be in charge of the border, the border czar, so to speak, and that has been a completely disaster. I mean, you've got people going down there, politicians, and anybody, governors, they're going down there. The governor of Texas actually put razor wire up and helped build fortifications to stop the flow of migrants into his state, and the federal government and the border czar, Kamala Harris, have tried to cut those, tried to sue the state of Texas because they're trying to protect their borders and remove the razor wires. I mean, that kind of stuff is not transparent. I mean, it is what it is. Like, you see this happening. It's been reported. It's been validated. There have been people gone to so when Kamala goes, she went one time, everybody saw the interview with her and Lester Holt and how she said it wasn't that important to go to the border, and how he asked her, have you been to the border? And she said, well, I haven't been to Europe either. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing she says because she doesn't have that kind of intellect, or not, maybe not that she doesn't have the intellect, it's just that she's not willing to do what it takes to actually secure the border and to fix this problem that we continue to have. I mean, it's her liberal agenda that's getting in her way. And Tim Walz, who she just chose as her vice presidential running mate, he's kind of got the same policies. I mean, he sets up special concessions for illegal immigrants who come into his state, Minnesota, and it's causing problems with that state. I mean, they're trying to become a sanctuary state, not just a city, and there's counties within that state that have admonished that they don't want to do that. Everybody knows, like, it's a drastic pull on your budget when you have to provide, road services, health services, all this stuff to these migrants when you have homeless vets suffering on the streets who can't pay rent or need help and can't get help because those funds are going into something that could be completely it could be fixed with by securing the border. Okay, I mean, that's all there is to it. So when it comes to those two, I think they're radical, and their agenda is that what you would expect from far left wing Democrats, and they're not ashamed of it, and they admit it. Just watch the video. You just pull up some of the comments that Tim Walz has made. Talking about the border wall, he said, well, if you build a 12-foot border wall, I'll invest in 13-foot ladder making companies, which is a funny quip. I mean, I'll give it to him. I think it's hilarious. But what's not hilarious is the fact that we have people getting murdered by criminals who are crossing our borders, and we have Iranian terror organizations coming into our country, and who knows what they're plotting and planning. You think we would have learned from 9/11 what nefarious countries will do. I mean, it is what it is. Nefarious countries, and I should say terrorist organizations, they have no limits on what they will do to cause devastation in the American society. And then you contrast this. Well, before I get off of them, I would say they should sit down with real journalists and have conversations where they have to talk off of script. I mean, I think probably Tim Walz will. If I was guessing, I would say that guy is probably going to be more available than Kamala, because I think he does have like the ability to actually sit down and rationalize and answer questions and put forth his agenda without looking like a complete just idiot like Kamala has, when she has done it. That's why I don't think she has done it again since she announced that she's going to be running. She has not done that. So I think he's going to be probably the first one to do it, and they're going to see how that goes, and maybe they'll find a softball from ABC to actually give her an interview and set it up for her. But I think it's a contrast to how Trump, Vance are going about in this campaign. Every single time I've saw, not every single time, but it seems like almost every time these days that I see J.D. Vance giving remarks, at the end of his remarks, he takes questions from the media. And they're not easy questions. They talk to him about things he said in the past. They talk to him about his policies that they don't agree with, and he defends them, and he gives explanations. And he even defends some of the things that Trump says, which, as you guys know, there's a lot to defend there. I mean, Trump has not always said the most intelligent things during his interviews. Sometimes Trump is just like a street fighter, and when you come at him with disrespect and hostility, that's how he returns. And that's nothing new. It's been happening for the last 30 years since he's been in the public view. Like, he doesn't pull punches, and as a politician, that doesn't come across like how you would expect. It actually invigorates his supporters, and it only encourages them to continue to support him, which is something I think that a lot of people are surprised about. But it is what it is at this point. Trump does it like that, and it's funny when you see J.D. Vance, because he is more of a political speaker, and he comes across with defending his points with policies, and he does a really good job of contrasting his policies versus other policies. So I think that is refreshing, and it is something that Trump campaign needed, and it just only makes Donald Trump look smarter that he has chosen someone who is not only willing but able to defend his some of his, I guess you would say, gaffes. I mean, when Donald Trump went to the NAJBs, I think it's the National Association of Black Journal, NABJ conference in Chicago, it was a hostile crowd, hostile interviews. interviewers, and I'll be honest, the first time I watched it, it looked really bad. I was like, oh my God, you know, it was clutching, you know, I was like, what is going on? Why is he saying this stuff? And then I watched it again. I mean, I think I may have watched it twice, maybe 3 times, but I'm gonna tell you, the more you watch that interview, the more you see like how transparent Donald Trump really is. Like, he's not playing any games. You know, he was right up front. Oh, you guys are the ones who made me wait 30 minutes. And then you come out here and disrespect and come at me with this hostility. You know, what do you expect? You know, your equipment does not work right. You know, I cannot hear Harris Faulkner at the end, the very end of this answer. I only hear like 1 out of every 4 words that she's saying. So, I mean, he's pretty transparent. You know, they gave him crazy questions, identity politics questions. Like, it's funny to me, like, they call everybody else racist. Like, when I say they, I mean the liberal media, you know. They call everybody else, I mean, it's like everybody's racist, right? But they're the ones who always bring up identity politics every single time. You know, they're the ones who brought up DEI. They're the ones who, and he just tried to only get her to defend or define DEI, and obviously all she could do is say, well, it means diversity, inclusion, and equity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So how's that a definition? It's not. It's definitely not. I've been around DEI for my career. I mean, as a recruiter, you know, even when I was in the military, that was something that was talked about and that we worked our way through. You know, and one of the ways that it was explained to me is like, hey, if America is a pie, you know, everybody has a slice. You know, maybe you have 12% African American, however many percent white, however many percent Hispanic. And, you know, we would like for the Air Force to look like that pie, you know, just like it. But, you know, as a recruiter, you know, back then and even now, I mean, I don't think that can be the most important thing in a candidate search. When you're looking for someone to do a job, you're not looking at the color of their skin. You're actually looking for someone who would be the best fit for that role. Or it doesn't matter. Like, who cares about ethnicity or gender or anything? All that project that needs to be completed cares about. All that does. All it cares about is the person who's going to do it the best. And that's what America is about. You don't have to be black or white or Hispanic or a man or a woman or anything. You just have to get the job done. And that's why, you know, that's why the people who focus on that when they're searching for talent, when they focus on actual attributes of skills that are needed to complete a job, when they focus on that right there, that is when they get the right candidate. And that is when they get the job done. It's not when, you know, they're like, well, we would really like a black female because that would really round out our organization and make us look good. We would look good on a primetime television commercial if we just videoed these people and we had all these different. Obviously, who cares what color they are? We want people who can do the job correctly. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. And if it's a black person or Hispanic woman or an Indian man, or it doesn't matter. It does not matter. All it matters is, do you meet the requirements, right? Do you meet them? Like I said, when I was in the Air Force recruiting and we had someone was trying out for Special Forces, you know, and they sit down in front of me because they saw a cool commercial on TV about PJs or anything else, TACPs, combat controllers. You know, there's a physical, there's an academic, there's these requirements, right? And the physical is of course is huge. Like, you know, you got to run a mile and a half in this many minutes, and you got to do this many push-ups, and you got to be able to do this many pull-ups, and you got to swim in a pool, and you got to be able to swim this fast for this period of time. So it didn't matter to me if you was black or white or a female, even. It didn't matter. If you can meet these requirements and you can make this aptitude score on your ASVAB, or it's just a test for the military. If you that's what gets you in. And then there's going to be a rigorous process once you get in. That's only the first step. And my job was to try to prepare those people before they went there. And guess what? Back to the beginning. It did not matter. It didn't matter if they were black, white, Indian, Asian, male, female. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. However, you know, you look at our presidential race in 2020, maybe in 2019, when Joe Biden got the electoral votes that he needed to become the Democratic candidate, which was he went through the process, and he got the not the electoral votes, but the delegates. He got the delegates the correct way. But what was the first thing? Everybody, the same thing as who are they going to choose for his running mate? He's like, well, I'm going to choose a black female. So he didn't ever mention the requirements or what kind of vice president he wanted or what kind of agenda and who's going to help him get the agenda he wants. And he didn't mention any of that. None of that was mentioned. All he mentioned was black female. And he picked the one black female that didn't even go past the first round of primaries, right? Kamala. You know, her favorability rating has been lower than any other vice president on record. So you got to wonder if, is this what happened when they finally had to acknowledge that Biden was not a good candidate for president this year? They had to pick another, a runner. The Democratic Party had to pick someone else. I wonder if DEI was a part of that. And they asked that question to Donald J. Trump during the NABJ conference, and he didn't say no. I mean, because why would he say, oh, no, I don't think that's a DEI hire? I mean, logical thinkers would point to the history of what they've done and come to that conclusion, So it's ambiguous how they're treating this election now that Kamala has been inserted into that the candidacy of the president of the most powerful country in the world. And she's the candidate, I think, because of DEI. And it's sad. It's sad. I think there's a lot more better qualified. Even if you wanted a liberal, there's better qualified liberals. But they picked her. Now she hasn't done, it's been almost 2 weeks since she became the candidate. Not one interview with an unbiased journalist or a biased journalist, not one. They just don't want her off script, folks. That's all there is to it. They don't. In contrast, Trump, Vance, talk to the media every single day. They're like open books. Trump even goes to the most liberal outlets. And I bet if CNN would have him, he would probably go there. I'm sure he would go to MSNBC too. He has before. I mean, he used to do it all the time, but they became so hostile. I don't know. I know he, in an open air environment, he will take questions from anyone. Just don't ask dumb questions to Donald Trump, and you won't get, his responses. People don't like him. And they just don't like him they don't focus on his policies. They try to focus on anything that they feel could hurt him. I wanted to talk just a minute because I watched this. It's with RFK Jr. It was called the Boomer Town Hall, and I watched it on YouTube. I would highly recommend everyone to watch that. Just because like he answers questions of normal everyday people. It was a schedule. I remember seeing it like on my X account, like when he was gonna have it, and like there was a countdown, so I could have got on there if I wanted to. Although I don't think I'm classified as a boomer, but I still could have got on it. It was an open invite. I didn't. I mean, obviously, I don't know what I was doing, but it popped up on my feed, and I watched it. It's about 50 minutes long. But like he answers like all these great questions, like about foreign policy and domestic policy and environmentalism, and he answers all of these questions, and in an open forum where like he has to tell you his policy and defend his policy with follow-up questions even. So it's even a contrast when you look at RFK Jr., Nicole Shanahan, who's his running mate, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Like that's the two tickets that are open to answer questions and defend themselves. The one ticket that does not do that is Harris. Like I said way earlier, I think Walz will be that guy that comes. I think he will do interviews. But man, I think they're really having a difficult time getting Harris to do them. So there's that. Hopefully she does, because I think Americans deserve to at least be able to make informed choices. This is like a strategy of Democrats that they do often. They want to play like groups of people. Like they take it for granted that, people in urban areas are going to automatically vote Democrat. So they don't have to talk about policies. They already know they're getting that voting block. This year, I think this is a year that somebody's going to beat them, because I think people are starting to wake up with social media, the internet being wide open. It's easy to get information. It's easy to go back and look at interviews from 2016, 2020, and all points in between. So it's easy to find out, like, if you really want to know and be an informed voter, you can find out what Kamala Harris is, what Donald Trump is, what RFK Jr. is, and believe me, there's gonna be moles on all of them. There's none of them perfect, not one of them. There was a crazy story about RFK Jr. that came out, I saw yesterday, that, he witnessed a bear, become like get hit by a car in city or somewhere, I don't know, and then he was gonna properly dispose of it, and then he lost track of time, and after a dinner, he needed to go catch a flight, so he dumped the bear, in the park. So it's a crazy story. There's more crazy stories on RFK Jr., but don't even get me started on Donald Trump's crazy stories. That dude, he's got all kinds of skeletons, and I don't think everybody knows it. And Kamala's got skeletons in her closet. I mean, when she was 29 years old and up and coming political, person as a defender, a public defender trying to get, or a DA, district attorney trying to campaign to get, into these roles. She became friends with, I think Willie Brown's his name, and he's 60 years old and married. And she didn't just become friends with him. She was, you know, a little more than friends. But as a political operative, he done the job for her. He got her elected as the DA, and I think even in California, her policies in California were crazy. It was insane. I mentioned one yesterday, but it's a nuts policies. Anyways, he did mention he helped her get there, and she's got more stuff. I mean, just her policies on their face are crazy. I mean, she's trying to backtrack from those, which now with getting Tim Walz, I mean, his policies are insane too. They call him Tampon Tim because he forced schools in Minnesota to put tampons in little boys' bathrooms in the schoolhouses. And, you know, signed a bill that would stop parents from having a say-so in whether or not their child can have a sex change operation. I mean, these are very, very way to the left liberal policies that I think Americans need to know about before they start voting. You know? I'm open-minded though. Like I said, watch the RFK Jr. town hall. I think it's amazing. It's really inspirational. Every time that guy talks, I'm like, man, why can't we? This guy's great. You know, I really like RFK Jr. But like I said yesterday, I mean, if he doesn't have a chance, like obviously I'm not going to waste my vote. If he's not just going to have any chance of winning, I'm not going to do it. I'll vote for Trump because I don't think Trump. I think we saw 4 years of Trump. It wasn't bad. Obviously, the pandemic happened, and it kind of ended on a crazy sour note. And then you had the election stuff that happened at the end, and that was a lot of people got way turned off by that. And you can't really blame them. I mean, it was an insane situation, and Donald Trump handled it kind of like sometimes the way he handles it. But people think he's going to blow up the world, but he didn't. The worst possible thing that could have happened to him happened, and he still didn't. He didn't blow up the world. He said peacefully. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as what Tim Walz allowed happened in his state. They burned down cities. They tried to get, the mayor tried to request National Guard to help save businesses in the city. No dice. Let it burn. You know, his wife's opening up the window. Burning cities. That smells like exciting new opportunities. Well, for somebody, whoever went in and bought that real estate, great opportunity for them, but the person that had to sell it for a fraction because it was burned to the ground, they lose out. But they get to now live on the government. So it makes the government bigger, and it's like a socialist wheel of fortune. So anyways, that's today. Watch that thing. Watch that town hall. And keep watching Trump Vance. Like, they're killing it. I love it. Hopefully Kamala will talk to somebody at some point. And where's Biden? There's like a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world. That guy, he's back to the basement. I'm out. Deuces.